With a Planet Fitness Black Card, you don't just get a great workout, you get a great perk out because your membership is packed with perks. Join for just $1 down and $24.99 a month.
Join the judgment-free zone today. Deal ends Thursday, August 10th.
See Home Club for details.
What's going on, spectators? Thanks for joining Jesus and me this week as we attempt to narrow down our top 10 comic book moments of 2021. Most are great, but some are not so great. Jesus, Fantastic Four number 1. Excuse me. Sorry, I had a little tickle in my throat there. That's right. We are breaking down the most notable comic book related moments that happened to us over the last year. And not to brag, but one of us snagged a Hulk 181 this last year, so that might be coming up too. So batten down the hatches and tell your mom we'll be late for dinner. This is episode 23.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spec, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Hello and welcome back, all you spectators and collectors out there, to the latest episode of Spec Tales, a comic book podcast, where we ask collectors and creators, what's your grail tale? Jesus, how's it going today?
Today it is going, I don't know, what's the word? Amazing is the word.
Amazing. Did you run out of toilet paper?
No, I just, I think it's fitting since Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, it is an amazing weekend. It has been pretty amazing.
Yes. That's why I used the word, man. It was awesome, man. It was phenomenal. So no spoilers. No spoiler.
No spoilers.
It's been amazing this weekend, man.
Jesus and I saw the movie separately. We've already talked about it off air. We're not going to be talking about the latest Spider-Man movie for this episode, but maybe next week. Spoiler, we're only going to give you a week. We're going to give you a week.
Yeah, man. And if you think about it, man, if you listen to this podcast, you probably saw the movie already because you're hardcore like us. You enjoy comic books. You enjoy the MCU. You enjoy everything that's going on with it. So, and again, obviously, live, some of you guys work hard or have work or family or what have you, but you'll probably end up seeing it pretty soon.
Yeah, I know Taco just was texting me that he's going to be seeing it. From the time of this recording, he's seeing it tomorrow night, which will be before the drop, of course, of the show, but still interesting. And he's always really slow. Taco he doesn't see movies right away, and he's even seeing this one soon. So that only is a good sign that this movie is getting everybody out of the woodwork.
I think the final number is 253 million, third biggest opening, and to do it during the times of COVID, which it is a time, it is what it is huge in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. So, but no spoilers on that. We're not going to go into the details. I would highly recommend it to anybody out there. If you're a comic book fan, if you are a MCU fan, it's all good. And in general, it's just a really good movie. So, highly recommended. For this week, this is going to be interesting. So, some of you listeners out there who joined the show more recently, we have not done an episode that's just Jesus and I for over a month. I don't know. When was the last time we had an episode that was just the two of us?
I don't even know. I think we've had like 5 in a row. So yeah, a little bit over a month.
Yeah, so 4 or 5 episodes at least since we last had just the two of us. So we're going back to the original formula, just the two of us, and we're going to do recent pickups. For Grail Tale this week, because of the time of year and where we're at, we actually wanted to do something interesting, something slightly different. So somewhat Grail Tale-y in a way, but we want to do our 2021 comic highlights or Grail Tale highlights and lowlights from 2021. So I don't know if that's going to work, but we've got some highs, we've got some lows, things related to comics for us. And I think they are story worthy.
For sure. I agree, man. And then also the last segment, which is one of my favorite segment, is the specking segment, where we get to spec on a few books that we have our target on.
Yeah, we'll close out with some specs and let everybody know what they should go out and look for out in the world. But before we jump into recent pickups and you know all the segments and things like that, I want to come back to something that we've teased in a couple of the intros, something that we have been talking about a little bit for the last few weeks. We have a giant size episode coming up where we are going to have multiple guests. We're talking 5 to 6 guests, and 2 of which we've already named. Taco, the presser, that we have not had on the show yet, but we have talked about frequently. He's going to be coming on for his first appearance on our show. And Black Crown Comics, who is a friend of ours on Instagram, is also going to be on the show. So last week we revealed 2 brand new guests who have never appeared on the show before. This week we're calling back to a couple of returning guests, one of which is Ryan at Automatic Comics. Ryan was our second guest ever on the show, episode 4, I believe. Go back and catch up with Ryan on that one if you want to know a little bit more about him. But he is going to be on, and we are also going to have another returning guest, Newbie Comics. He's a fan favorite, of course, for a lot of people. Newbie was on the show. I think he was guest number 6 or 8, or episode 6 or episode 8.
Yeah, and the rumor mill has him wearing a Speedo during the recording of the show. I'm not too sure about that. That's just a rumor. You know, I didn't put this out there. That's just what I heard.
I've actually been hearing the same thing around on Instagram. People saying that he wants to do a recreation of Fantastic Four number 4 with Submariner. So I don't know why. I'm kind of interested in who's playing Sue Storm in that recreation. Those are the guests that we are planning on having. And there may be a couple more and maybe some other surprises that we're not quite ready to reveal yet. But it's going to be a big show. We're going to be talking about what our 2022 goals are. So everybody's going to be tossing out books that we're going to hold everybody else accountable for. So Jesus, whatever books you got on your list, I'm going to hold you accountable for. And if we get to 2023 and you don't have those books, you will be shamed by all of our listeners.
Look, can I choose how to be shamed? Can I be tied up and then attacked by these vicious dogs, like in that
in Animal Castle?
Animal Castle? Is that possible?
We're gonna have to figure out how to arrange that, but maybe. Let's get to 2023. Also, it sounds like you might enjoy it more than anything, so now I'm kind of creeped out.
Glutton for punishment sometimes, man, especially if I don't reach my collecting goals.
Well, I'm interested to hear what everybody's goals are going to be. And we will hold people accountable. I'm really excited to have another opportunity to get some of these guys on, especially the ones that were on really early. When we had just kicked this thing off, and some of them, if you're listening now and you haven't gone back, go check out the Newbie episode. Go check out Ryan's episode. They are actually a lot of fun, and Ryan and Newbie both. Newbie is great at throwing out a lot of low-key specs, things that people are not looking on, and Ryan is just a wizard when it comes to numbers. Ryan does on his YouTube account, really great follow. He does a breakdown of the Heritage Auction every week. All right, so that's the giant size episode we've got coming up. Let's get into this week. Jesus, I always let you kick off the recent pickups, so take it away.
All right, man. This week I have 2 recent pickups. The first one I'm really excited about. I'm going to be showing it here for you guys. We'll probably post it. I don't know. Maybe we'll post it. Maybe we won't. This is called Don't Pay the Ferryman. It's a real, it harkens back to Bronze Age horror. It's a comic Tom and Skeleton Key exclusive, a friend of the show, Skeleton Key exclusive cover. And the cover was done by Nate Johnson, who is a collaborator with me on Guaranteed on our newsletter. So I really wanted to get this book. There's only 100 of these books. It's an Emerald City Comic Con exclusive. I just got it in a few days ago. Really excited about it. The writers are and the people who made it are Hayes, Scott, Chambers, McGuire, and then it's the Nate Johnson cover. Really cool cover, really cool book. Only 100 made. I'm lucky enough to be one of those 100 to have one. And this is a cool cover, man. Had you seen this book before?
So I had seen it posted on Instagram, but I wasn't able to grab one myself. It really does harken back to some of the DC horror comics from the Bronze Age. I think it looks exactly like some of those DC horror series that we'd mentioned before, like The Witching Hour. It's got a great look to it. And yeah, Sammy and Tony from Skeleton Key Comics, they were on episode 21, I believe, 2 episodes ago. That was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed recording with them, and it's really cool that you ended up getting one of those books. Because like I said, I wasn't able to snag one.
Yeah, man, it just happened by luck. I think I follow Nate on Instagram. He posted about it, that it was coming out soon or something like that. I guess when I saw it, it had just come out or was about to come out, and you had to go through their Whatnot. So I went on their Whatnot and purchased it before it sold out. And I think it did sell out. So I'm just really happy that I was able to pick it up. So that's my first recent pickup, which brings me to another thing that I was happy to pick up as well, because it is getting harder and harder to do, which I know you're not on this train, but I'm going to try to get you on this train. Maybe that could be a grill for me next year, getting Jake on the NFT comic book train. So I was able, again, by sheer luck, to pick up Avengers number 57, the first appearance of Vision in the NFT. Again, it's there's only 30,000 of these books that are sold, of these NFTs that are sold through the VEVE app, VEVE app. And some of the numbers that I wanted to put out there to kind of put this in context, that company that's doing these, that has partnered with Marvel, they did a AMA, which is an Ask Me Anything, on December 9th on their Discord. And somebody asked, I guess, what is the market or how many people are on their app or things of that nature. And at the time, this was as of December 9th, they had 1.3 million active users, and they were seeing increases in daily users, new daily users, of between 20 and 30,000 per day. So when you put those numbers into perspective, there's only 30,000 of each issue that they release. It's very difficult to get, and I've been trying to get everyone that comes out. In the past 4 that have come out, I've only been able to get this last one, which was Avengers 57. So it's been very difficult trying to get these books, just because of how much demand there is for them. And as soon as you get them, they're selling them for $6.99. And as soon as you get them, the marketplace is closed for usually about an hour after the drop. So once it opens up and people start trying to resell them, and there's not a lot. I mean, usually there's about 300 to 400 that are trying to be resold. They immediately, shoot up to about $20 to $25 right off the bat. Then they go down, when people start seeing that they're not selling or what have you, or some of them even go up. Like the Daredevil one, shot up to 20, 25 right off the bat, and now it's close to 60. So it just depends on what book it is. And they're doing probably about 1 per week. So that's my second pickup for this week. Very fortunate to get both of them. Very happy with both of them. And one day, Jake, I will get you on the NFT train.
I mean, I highly doubt it, but it's an interesting goal for you to have, for sure. You certainly do present a lot of good information on this, right? Like you're doing your research, which I always appreciate about you.
But yeah, man, there's a lot of cool things about it. I do my research on it. I don't just buy like crazy. I have to like what I'm doing, and then I have to research it, and it has to match up. And if it doesn't, then I don't go into it.
And I agree. Like I said, that's what I've always appreciated about you is the diligence you put into what you're investing in this particular case. But I worry though, because I don't want to rob you of the ability to say, I told you so. Right. Like I almost like that's something else, money can't buy for you. Right. Like you're getting them now and I'm not, and I'm not going to get on the train. And part of why I don't want to get on the train at this point is I'm giving you something that money can't buy. And that's that feeling of saying, Jake, I told you so. I just sold this one for $1 million. I told you so, Jake. So
I'm just going to tell you, man, as soon as I get a secret rare, that I told you so text is coming, man, because those bad boys are like minimum of $1,000, dude. So
okay,
get ready, Jake. I'm
looking forward to it. Okay, I think I'm gonna go. Well, you're done, right? You got all your recent pickups out of the way.
Those are my recent pickups.
Okay, so I've only got one recent pickup, but it is one that I am excited to talk about. I've listed this book as a spec book before. And it is a book that I wanted to get. I also wanted to read. And it is Akira #1, printed in 1988. Katsuhiro Otomo. I apologize on the name pronunciation. But Otomo is the artist, the creator of Akira. So I got #1. I was able to find it in a really pristine high grade. I believe it's a high grade. It is a raw copy of the book. So and I think I'm going to get it graded. I don't know that it's going to hit 9.8, but I think it could get 9.4, somewhere up there. It's a really clean copy of the book. So I managed to find that locally. I went ahead. I didn't read this particular issue, but I did find Akira online and I read it. And I had not read it before. I had not seen the anime movie, and it was incredible. I went ahead and I read the whole first storyline, first book, and
the first arc.
Yeah, and it's a great story. It really is. The artwork is incredible. Everything about it. I can't wait for the movie. I know that when I spec'd on it was because Taika Waititi had been attached to direct it. Mm-hmm. I believe Leonardo DiCaprio was a producer on it. He's one of the people pushing to try and get this movie made, which also only gives me more confidence that at some point it will be created.
It will be made. Yeah. The other thing about that too is I recently, I'm talking about like in the last 24 hours on Instagram, I ran across that thing that shows up every 6 months or something. I'm sure people have seen it. Maybe you've seen it or not, Jake, but all the homages to that bike scene that have been done in comic books.
I haven't seen it. No,
or not even comic books, in cartoons, like where they're riding the bike and they slide it.
Yeah.
Just like it is. I mean, I'll look it up. I'll send it to you. We'll probably, I don't know, we could put it on our story or something. But it comes out every 6 months. It's either like TikTok, a little short clip, and it's just what is it? Cartoon show after cartoon show doing the same thing with their
just
characters.
The homage to the Akira bike.
The Akira bike, yeah.
That bike is legendary, right? Like I didn't know about it before, but now I do, and now I want one, and I'll never.
Your daily driver, huh?
Yeah, it's my daily driver. Yeah, right. So that's my only recent pickup. That's the only one I got, but I think it was, I was pretty excited about it, and just to read it, I had enough time to actually read through, and I just binged it. Like I just mowed through that thing. It was so good. So.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. I mean, it lives up to the hype.
It does. Yeah, absolutely, it does. Okay, so I'm excited to move on for this highlights and lowlights of 2021. So, because I know we've both got some highs, we've both got some lows. We've shared a few of these on the previous episodes. So some of you listeners, some of you spectators out there who have gone back through or listened to them all, you might hear a couple of things that you recognize. So we won't dive into all of the full stories for these pieces. However, we're going to do a total of 10 for the show. Jesus is going to take 5, and I'm going to take 5. So, Jesus, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your first one?
All right, man. So I'm going to start off with this first one. I don't think we've talked about this too much on the show, maybe a little bit. But this year, I was fortunate enough to run smack into a entire Tomb of Dracula run. I usually try to buy collections, whether they're small or medium. I try to stay away from the large ones because I'm just not there yet. But at least if it's a small or medium collection, I'm usually trying to make a deal, trying to work out a deal. And this Tomb of Dracula run, I worked on this deal for a while, and it wasn't local per se, but it was. I live in Houston. It was in Dallas, so I was able to get the gentleman's phone number, and we started texting and going back and forth. And I realized this gentleman is in his mid 70s, and he literally collected this entire run when it came out, like month after month. And he was a truck driver during this time, so he would go whatever state he was in when it was New Comic Book Day and the new Tomb of Dracula came out. He would stop by whatever comic shop was there and pick up the latest issue. And so this issue was 1 through, I think it's 70.
Oh, wow.
70? Yeah. So this issue, it was 1 through 70. It included number 1, which was obviously the first appearance of Dracula in Marvel Comics. That one was really crispy. And then number 10, which is the first appearance of Blade. And as you guys may or may not know, I'm kind of in that struggle phase between am I collecting or am I selling because of because of guaranteed and things like that. And Tomb of Dracula 10 has always been one of my books that I wanted to get. I grew up with Blade. Blade came out in, I think, 2000, right? It was 2000?
Yep. Yeah.
So
the original Blade. It might have been 99, if now that I think about it, but it was turn of century. It was turn of century.
Yeah, so I was 14 years old, man, when that movie came out. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I didn't even know about Blade at the time. I didn't know it was based on a comic book. So I've always wanted it. It's always been out of reach, out of hand. Never really put my mind to it. But when this run came along, I was like, man, this is actually like, so basically what caught my attention was that the run was being sold for just a little bit more than what Tomb of Dracula 10 was worth.
Okay.
Right by itself. So I was like, okay, well, maybe if I can make a deal, I can get it and make it work. And I mean, it took me like 2 months to talk to this guy and finally work it out. And then lo and behold, when I go up there and we make the deal, this guy was a Dracula fan and like vampire fan, werewolf, stuff like that. So he also had like some Werewolf by Nights and stuff like that. But the ones that I got that were extras, I got Marvel Premiere number 1.
Wow.
Which is that Adam Warlock.
Yeah.
I got Luke Cage, Hero for Hire number 1.
Nice.
Which is good. And then I got Marvel Chillers number 1, which is the first Lilith, which is also a hot book. So there was just a bunch of extras thrown into it. The guy was a nice guy. Again, in his 70s, he was trying to get rid of it. So it just worked out, man. So that's my first highlight of this year. It's a whole Tomb of Dracula run, including number 1 and number 10.
That's very cool. Nice. All right. Well, I'm gonna jump back to January 2021, where you have a very new collector, Jake. So I'd been a reader for a long time, and I guess you could say I was collecting years ago, but not to the extent that I collect now. Now I'm what I consider a full-grown adult with an adult job and the ability to actually purchase things. So my first major purchase as a collector was, and I made it a personal goal to save up. And in this case, I had no comic book sales to support this saving up. So this was just me piecing off a little bit of money every time, I could, just to save up to get a book. And so it was Giant Size X-Men number 1. And I picked this book for a number of reasons. I am an X-Men fan, huge X-Men fan, but X-Men number 1 was not just, it was a little more expensive, of course, a lot more expensive, of course, but not my X-Men, right? And I don't mean any insult. Like, ultimately, the original X-Men from 1963, Professor X, all of those they're all great characters, and I do want to collect those books, but not my X-Men. The ones that I grew up with in the 90s are the ones that I sought after. So I pegged Giant Size X-Men #1 as the book that I wanted to go grab, saved up the money, and I pulled the trigger on, it was a graded copy, a 6.0 with white pages, of course, white pages. And I pegged that one, saved it up. I found the book, pulled the trigger, and lo and behold, within 2 weeks of when I bought it, I was seeing it go for nearly double what I bought it for. And I was just like, oh my God, this is not how this is supposed to work. Like, does the market really work this way? Because I was very new to the market, and 2021, the market just went nuts. So yeah, Giant Size X-Men #1. I don't know if I've even talked about that on this show. So
I think you mentioned it to I guess guests, but not the story of how it came upon and what you did, and also how it popped off so fast. Did you have thoughts of selling to make a quick buck?
I really did. I honestly looked at it and I was just like, I could in 2 weeks have just made, almost a couple grand, right? Like, I was just like, holy crap. Could it but I was also just asking myself, is this how this works? Like, jumping into the collector's market, there were people that had been collecting and they were flipping and doing all of that. And I had never done that before. I'd never sold a comic book before. And so I'm looking at it going, but I actually really want this book. I don't know that I want to sell it. So, and I still have it. I did not sell it. I don't really want to sell that one.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I can go on to my #2.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm going to kind of go in order. So that Tomb of Dracula one was kind of around the time you're talking about, January, February. I had been talking about it since last year with the gentleman, and it didn't happen until this year.
Okay.
So the second one that I want to talk about is a book that we've talked about a lot because we enjoy the story, and we know the potential of it. It's been optioned. It's going to be on Netflix, I believe. But it's Something That's Killing the Children #1.
Nice.
So you had told me about this book. You got this book off the shelf, right? Is that right?
Not #1. So I actually technically got #1 online, dirt cheap, right? Because I had missed the number. I think I didn't get into my LCS. It was either week 2 or week 3.
Okay.
I know it's at the very minimum week 3 because I know I have a few copies of the first and second print.
Okay. So for me, I mean, I didn't even get close to it on this book, but I bought the trade paperback of 1 through 5 and I read it and I was like, holy crap, this is a cool series. Why did I miss out on the series? This is the issue with not having a legit LCS for me. And after I read it, I was like, okay, I got to get #1. I know it's going to pop off. I know it's a big book. I want to get it before it does. And they were selling at the time, I think this was around March. They were selling anywhere between $250 and $300, right? And so I was looking at them, and I had my eyes on a couple, and I really wanted a raw 9.8 contender, right? So I was looking at some. I bid on some. I missed out on. They went too high. I didn't want to spend more. Honestly, at the time, I was like, if I can get it for $200 or around there, I'll be happy because it's going for like $250, $260. I don't consider it a steal. I'll be okay with spending that much money on it. And the one that I ended up getting, I did get a steal on it. Not as great a steal on it, but I got it for, I think it was $213 was the ending bid on it.
Oh, nice.
In March. So I was still under the $250, $13 over my initial goal. And guess what? It came back at 9.8. So that's my second win, I guess, or grail for this 2021. And it's Something That's Killing Children #1, 9.8. That was around March of this year, I think.
Perfect. Nice. Okay. I think I'll probably go in order as well. I'm going to go ahead and say for this next highlight This will be a highlight. This was my first CGC submission coming back. So I submitted to CGC. It would have been like the last week of December of 2020, but I didn't actually get my submission back until the end of February. And at the time, it felt like it took forever. But of course, we all know that that's actually, getting your submission back in 2 months has turned into pretty decent timing. But this is me not knowing absolutely anything about books, right? I submitted a couple of books that I just had already that I had previously collected. I'd never submitted. I didn't own any CGC slabs. I was just, so I'd gotten a couple of books online and then a couple that I already had. So I'll go through them real quick. So Submariner #1 from 1968. So that one came back a 3.5 because it had a detached cover. But it wasn't detached when I sent it. So I think CGC, I don't know what happened to that one. Here's one that it's the oldest comic that I have in terms of I've owned it the longest as far as collectibles. Captain America 100 from 1968. So this was the relaunch of Captain America in the Silver Age. And I got the book probably in 2009-ish, somewhere along the lines of 2009. I've just always been a big fan of Captain America, and I wanted his first book, and obviously his first book is 1945 or 40, whatever it was, or whatever it is, Golden Age. And so this became like the next best thing for me at the time. So that one came back a 5.5. Then I picked up, surprisingly, I must have been specking early on this one, Avengers #8, first appearance of Kang the Conqueror. And I had picked that up early, right? Like I had this book. So that one came back a 3.0, another real low grade on that one. And then the last one, really early on this one, Fantastic Four 67. This is the origin and first appearance of him, who later becomes Warlock. But again, another book that I got, I don't even remember how much I paid for it, like dirt cheap. Like I just had it kind of already in my collection. So I was like, I guess I'll send this one. And that one came back a 5.5. So anyway, nice. It was a huge learning experience for things like that Submariner and the detached cover and stuff like that. And just learning from, I don't want to say mistakes, but trying to grade, learning how to grade, send it to CGC and figure out what the grades come back as. And it was a learning experience to be sure. So that was #2 for me.
That's good, man. That's a good learning experience. And working with CGC is always fun. All right. So I'm going to go to my #3. This would be considered a mix of a low light and a highlight. This was also done at the end of March, beginning of April. I actually gave away ASM 300 8.5 newsstand, the first appearance of Venom. And the reason I gave it away is it was one of my marketing tactics, ploys, if you will, for the launch of my website, Guaranteed Comics. So we had about 1,000 entries into it. And I was able to give it away to a very good guy named on Instagram. It's Coco Unlimited. He ended up being the winner of the giveaway. It's a low light for me because obviously I'm a big Spider-Man Venom fan. And that was one of the books I got, I don't know, probably 2010, 2011-ish. I got off the back wall of my LCS at the time. It was the most I had paid for a comic book at that time. I think it was like $80.
Oh, wow.
At that time. And it was a good copy, man. And I actually think, and I told him too, if he wanted to resubmit it, because I thought that was a better copy than 8.5 for a newsstand. So that's why it was low light, but it's a highlight because it also marks the launch of Guaranteed Comics, which is my passion project.
Yep.
And And it's also the person that it went to is a collector, is also a Venom fan. He's not going to sell it. It's not going to go anywhere. He showed me his whole Venom collection, which he said he was not able to uh, get it by his own means, the ASM 300, but he had 298, 299, 301. He had 316 from before. So
Oh
this guy is
man,
a
that's
Venom.
cool.
Yeah. So this guy is a Venom, collector. So I was glad it went to him. And you can find him online, Coco Unlimited. He has a nice post about it. So that was my number 3.
I was one of the
low highlight.
I was one of the people who submitted. I was one of the 1,000 of people who did. So I didn't win, of course, as everybody now knows. So all right, I'm going to go with a low light as well. This one I did talk about on our show. So if you want to, I believe you can go back to, was it episode number 3, I believe? Marvel Special Edition 15. So this is the first appearance of Shang-Chi in comic books. I had picked up a gorgeous looking copy of the book. I found it from a seller on Instagram who had no idea the book had been restored. I didn't realize it had been restored. Huge learning experience. We talked about it with my first CGC submission. This would have been like my 5th, 6th, 7th. I don't know how many I did this year anymore. But it would have been a submission later in the summer. And I purchased the book probably in May, I think. It took me a couple months to actually build up enough books that I wanted to submit. And I felt really good. I was like, this is going to be a 9.0. It's going to be, or at least a 9.0. And I ended up submitting it. And it came back, I think it was actually a 9.2. I'm not 100% sure anymore. I've kind of blocked a lot of it out of my mind, what it all was. But it came back with the dreaded purple label. The one that just, it just rips your heart out when you see it. And it was a 9.2. I think it was a high grade. And I remember saying like, oh shoot, this thing actually did get the grade. I got the grade right. Unfortunately, it had some touch-up marks on it, some Sharpie or something along those lines. It's a black cover, gorgeous black cover, but it had just had those marks on it. So I'm going to put that up there. That was a really big moment for me this last year. I learned a lot from it. It really has changed the way I evaluate a book as soon as I get it. So black lights help.
Yep. No mistakes, man. Just learning experience.
Exactly.
All right. So I'm going to follow that up with another low light for me, which this is probably, I've only had one other bigger low light, but it wasn't this year. It was last year. So we can talk about that in a future episode, I guess. But this year, the biggest low lights is the second biggest low light I've had as a collector. It's from episode 1, Fantastic Four, number 1 and number 4. Slipped through my hands. I had one in each hand, and then it turned into sand. I was in a Dali painting at some point or something, and it just felt, I don't know, man. And the thing about it is, like, so if you guys don't know, go back and listen to episode 1. But
you got it. I got to tell people, go listen to episode number 1. It really still holds up. It's a lot of fun, and hey, it gives me so much joy to hear Jesus tell the story. And I know I shouldn't, but I just can't help but just be like, oh my God.
Dude, I had it, man. Like, the deal was done. The deal was made. The price point was done. It was a holiday, so I couldn't withdraw the funds that day. I had to wait till the next day. All that worked against me because the guy slept on it and then said no at the last minute. So I owned it for all of 8 hours, and by the end of the night, I didn't own it anymore. I didn't own a Fantastic Four number 1 and a Fantastic Four number 4. The first appearance of the Fantastic Four and then the first appearance of Submariner in the Silver Age. They went through my hands. Really tough, man. And what I'm saying is, the other day, I don't know what happened, but I showed my wife Fantastic Four, both number 1 and number 4. And she's like, oh, hey, don't you have those books? And I was like, oh. And I was like, no, man. These are the ones that went away that I didn't get. She was like, oh, yeah. And then she made, that face that people make, the, Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah.
She said, oh man, can you thank her for me though, please?
So I'm getting it from everywhere. I'm getting it from every angle, guys. Every angle here.
Oh yeah, that actually is a reminder. If you're listening and you have a spare moment, please go ahead and message Jesus at Guaranteed Comics or at the Spec Tales, Spec_Tales_podcast to just remind him, hey guy, remember that one time you had Fantastic Four for 8 hours? That would honestly, there's no better way to give me more joy if you're looking to get me something for Christmas.
Hey, how long have you owned a Fantastic Four #1? Is what I want to know.
I have not. I've not even been close.
Because I've owned it for 8 hours at least.
All right, you win the prize, apparently. Okay, that was number 4 for you, right?
That was number 4, yes.
Okay, I'm going to go, and I'm holding one back. So I'm going to go with, I guess, maybe it's a twofer. I don't know. And this one kind of, both of these go for you. So I don't know. I'm going to say launching Spec Tales. We launched it in July. It's been a hell of a lot of fun. We've talked to a lot of great people, both on the show and people reaching out to us because of the show. We've inspired people to go out and find grails of their own, which has been amazing to hear those stories come back. And I can't say enough about how much it's just been a pleasure to do Spec Tales. So I'm going to do that. But I want to specifically call out talking to Martin Marazzo, because Ice Cream Man, I mean, if you want to talk about a dream interview, that was it for me. Ice Cream Man is still right now one of my very favorite ongoing issues or series out there. I love the series. To just get an opportunity to talk to and to keep up with. We still message with Martin, and he's, just BSing and stuff like that, but he's a genuine friend of the show. He's a really nice guy, and for no reason, right? We reached out to him. He had no reason to say yes to do the interview. He was just like, yeah, sure. And then we talked for like 2 hours. We had to cut that down so much. But yeah, so Spec Tales and it's specifically getting to do an interview with an artist that I never thought I'd ever have a chance to talk to.
Yeah, and I'll kind of that's my number 5. So I did 4. That's my number 5 together as well. So I'll also say, launching Spec Tales. Oh man, it's been such a learning experience. It's been so much fun. It's been so much kind of like growth and pushing myself as well, because I'm not really used to being in front of people, whether it's camera or on a podcast or anything like that. So, but then also, like you mentioned, I think the being able to help people and them reaching out and saying, hey man, we liked the last episode, or keep it up, or man, that spec that you did, I bought like 5 of those copies, and that's the one where I do that face like, ooh, I don't know, man. Like, because I have
we
that
trust
pressure.
Ourselves, but man, that's a lot of trust.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. But and again, that's the interaction and engagement that we have with this podcast, and it's continued to grow, and we've continued to get positive feedback. We get negative feedback just like everybody else. We're not perfect, but yeah, man, that's a huge highlight. Talking to Martin again was a highlight for me. You also told me about Ice Cream Man. Getting the Ice Cream Man #1 9.8 was also part of my highlight, but it all goes and encompasses that whole interview with Martin, and being able to talk to him and pick his brain, talk about Ice Cream Man, talk about his Marazzo vision with the writer Maxwell Prince.
Yep.
And just like the ins and outs of it, some back stuff that, like the stuff that we had to cut, we wish we'd be able to tell you guys some of the stuff that we cut about it, and some things that are coming up for Martin as well. But it was just so cool. It was an awesome interview. It was awesome to get him on, and so it's definitely a highlight for 2021 for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Okay, so I got the last one, and I had to save it for the big blockbuster trade that I made. It was a massive. I mean, it really was just from a pure comic book standpoint. trading 6 slabbed comic books to obtain one comic book, Hulk 181, was, and to do it in a week, right? To just basically decide, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to do this. And then to just pull it off in a week and have the book in my hands by the end of that week. I picked it up, I got it from the post office on a Saturday morning. I still read, it was just kind of one of those things. It was a book that I never thought I'd get. And based on financials, sure, I could have sold some books or things like that, but the process of finding a dance partner, somebody willing to trade, and then somebody looking through the inventory I had in terms of books and saying that one and this one and this one, and then doing the math and then finding somebody that was reasonable. It was it felt like the week that it happened felt like it took forever. But I also put a lot of time and effort into talking to multiple people. I had one dance partner that I thought was going to work out, but then didn't. And ultimately it was for the best because I ended up getting a better graded copy of Hulk 181. So it's still one of those books where it's I keep it secure, but I got to go and make sure it's there every once in a while. You still, yeah, I still got it. Okay. That was
you
just,
alive?
Yeah.
Are you alive in there?
Yeah. You're still breathing? Okay, good. So I got to say that the Hulk 181 trade, which if you want to hear more about the Hulk 181 trade, you can find that. That is episode 5. I don't actually remember which episode it was anymore. We did an episode on it. Are you looking it up?
5, episode 5.
I knew it. All right. Well, then I'll just cut all this rest out of this stuff out and we'll just say it's episode 5.
Yeah. Episode 5.
All right. So that, I guess, concludes 2021 was a big year for both of us, it sounds like. And we probably each could have done our own top 10 highlights, but then we would have been talking for over 2 hours probably. But in general, it was a really big year for me. I really dove deep into comics and collecting, reading a lot more than I ever had before. I was always a reader, but I read trade paperbacks and, usually just a hobby, right? Now it is still a hobby, but it just consumes so much of my life. 2021 was a big year for that for me. And it sounds like you made a lot of big transitions in 2021 as well.
Yeah, man, a lot of transitions from dipping my toes in 2020 and COVID and getting online to going full bore. Yeah, man, it's been a fun year, highs and lows, ebbs and flows, but we get to be in this community and we get to do what we love, which is, read and collect comic books.
Exactly. All right. Well, now we get to the fun segment where we get to tell some people some books that we're looking at getting next. Why don't you kick us off with I don't know if you have one or two or how many specs you got, but why don't you hit us off with one?
Okay, well, I'll hit you off with one. I'm going based on my nostalgia. I mentioned to you that a lot of my specs hit because I kind of used the Warren Buffett strategy somewhat, somehow, at least in my mind. Warren Buffett says invest in what you buy, what you like, right? And so that's kind of what I've been doing. I talked about it with Earthworm Jim, and I think there was another one. I forgot which one it was too that I was ahead of the game on. That was part of that nostalgia. So this is another one that's part of the nostalgia. In the 90s, there was obviously a lot of cartoons. We all watched X-Men and we all watched Amazing Spider-Man, Saturday morning cartoons. Well, this is a Saturday morning cartoon as well that is a knockoff of Ninja Turtles, but it held its own. It had its own little quirkiness. It was pretty cool, at least in my opinion. And it's very ripe for a reboot, whether in comic form or cartoon show form. But I'm talking to none other than the 4 lovable brothers that everybody loves and knows, the Street Sharks. So this is Street Sharks #1 from January of 1996. So many things going on with this book. This book was the first one of a of a 3-issue miniseries. And that 3-issue miniseries did so well that they ordered an ongoing series that started in May of the same year. But the ongoing issues only lasted 3 issues and they got canceled after the 3rd issue. So I don't know what's going on with it, at least from that standpoint, where the miniseries did very well, which the miniseries was an origin. It was basically the origin of them kind of telling that story, which was a little replay of the cartoon show. And then the ongoing issues went into some different things. But yeah, that's the one. And that's also interesting because it's hard to collect the right one. There's 2 different issue number 1s from 1996. One of them has a tank on it and it says number 1 of 3. And that one is going for around $20. It's limited. Like, it's not that many out there. It's hard to find. It's scarce, if you will. And the other one is a little bit more prevalent. But it's still hard to find, and I would still pick it up too. I mean, the first in the ongoing series out of 3, pretty cool covers. The owner of the IP for the cartoon show is the owner. They own a bunch of IP for cartoon shows like Yo Gabba Gabba, Caillou, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Mega Man. This IP, this series, Street Sharks, went for, I believe, 3 seasons and 40 episodes. So it's a pretty big library there that they can go back to.
Yeah.
So that's my speculation.
I remember Street Sharks. I was a big fan. Yeah. So
yeah,
I enjoyed the show. Now I'm not gonna claim that I enjoyed it more than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it was a good show.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's 10 years later. They did it also the same way for the Ninja Turtles, which they wanted toy sales. And the toys are pretty cool as well.
I had some of those toys, and yeah, I completely agree. They were badass. So
yeah. So there you go.
All right, my turn.
Your turn, man.
All right. So I've got one that I was doing some personal research for, and it I don't know why. I just kind of thought of the character and thought, you know what? I don't know what Peggy Carter's first appearance is. Peggy Carter's been turning up all over the place lately. The What If series, major character in the What If series. She also seems to have, her connections are just spider webbing out, and people seem to be pushing to get this character more screen time. At least that's all it feels like. So because of that, I come back and I'm like, what is her first appearance? I'm now genuinely curious and I don't know. So I find out it's Tales of Suspense 77, which is the first appearance of Peggy Carter, first full and cover appearance of Ultimo, a robot weapon created to destroy anything it encounters. So a villain. So there's 2 firsts in this book. And it was written by Stan Lee, and the artist was Gene Colan. So the thing is this book is actually really affordable. And I mean really affordable. You can go and find this book under $100.
Nice.
And I was blown away. I was like, it's the first Peggy Carter. Maybe people just weren't taking the character seriously, or I don't know. And it seems like Disney and Marvel are not done with Peggy Carter yet. There are rumors that Peggy Carter could show up in Doctor Strange 2. So, I don't know. Keep your eyes open. This book has, on the high end, you can get some high value ones, if you're getting a graded book. But if you are just looking to get a copy of this book in a decent grade, it is extremely affordable. I think people are sleeping on it. So I'm going to go ahead and just say Tales of Suspense 77 is my spec of the week.
And that's a great spec for sure.
I was
putting it on my list.
I was actually blown away, honestly, because I hadn't really thought about it. And then I'm watching some of the shows and just tooling around online. I was like, well, it's people probably doing the same thing I did. I didn't really think about it. I should have looked into what her first appearance was years ago, honestly. And I just didn't. All right. Does that wrap it up for us? Is that the show?
That's the show, man. That's the first show. Put it in the books.
Oh, all right. Well, that was exciting. So, all right, before we head out, we are rolling into the holiday season. So, no matter what holiday you guys celebrate, happy holidays. I'm not exactly sure what we're doing next week. We are going to be looking into whether we're going to have a guest or honestly, the holiday schedule is kind of crazy for Jesus and I. So, look for us next week. We're going to drop something. We don't know what it is yet, if we're going to have a guest or if it's going to be just us or whatever it might be. But please stay tuned for that. And do please mark your calendars. January 5th, we are dropping a giant size episode to kick off 2022. It's going to have a lot of guests. We are going to be talking about our 2022 goals. And there might be some surprises as well. I'm not at liberty to say what those are. Lock and key, mouth shut, zipper, all that stuff. So not going to say anything more, but keep an eye out. And definitely go follow us on social media if you haven't yet, because there may be stuff coming there too. You got anything before we head out?
The only thing I want to say is, if you guys are enjoying it, if you guys can share this with a potential collector that would also enjoy this type of comic book content, and also or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us get found. We would appreciate it very, very much.
Yes, thank you so much for saying that, because I was going to forget. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you all next week.